Welcome back to the TPS podcast. TPS stands for trillions per second, named after the book. Heads up to all listeners. This is going to be a trippy episode. The author of TPS, while working on the lexicon, had a sudden realization that what started as a book project for dharma geeks and tech bros just turned into a universal interface for contemplative technology. So as an experiment, the author ran a TPS protocol analysis on the author's own personal psychedelic experience. In this episode, we'll do a deep dive on that analysis to see if TPS protocol delivered. Let's dive right in.
It is good to be back, and honestly, this is the document I've been most excited to talk about. TPS on psychedelics.pdf.
Me too, because it's a real field test, isn't it?
It's the ultimate stress test. I mean, the entire TPS system is put through the ringer here. And the results are, well, they're pretty staggering.
Staggering is a good word for it. Usually when we cover these documents, we're in the realm of meditation, right? It's controlled, it's, sitting on a cushion, dealing with a busy mind.
Exactly. It's safe. You're debugging minor glitches in the code. This document, though, this is a full system meltdown. Deliberate.
Yeah, let's set the stage. We're looking at a user journal entry from November 16, 2021. The event type is labeled hardware overclock. And then in parentheses, it clarifies chemical brute force.
And that phrasing is just so key to understanding the intent here. Hardware overclock. Let's break that down for a second.
It's not getting high.
Not at all. In computing, when you overclock a processor, you're forcing it to run faster than its intended specifications. You're pushing more voltage through it to get more performance.
But you risk instability. You risk, frying the whole thing.
You risk a total crash, and that's exactly the point. The chemical brute force part is the how. The log specifies the dose. 7.377 grams.
Okay, for anyone who doesn't know, a standard heroic dose, the kind that people talk about with a certain reverence and terror, is 5 grams.
5 grams is already strapped to the rocket, as they say. That's the point where you generally lose contact with consensual reality.
So 7.377 grams, that's nearly 50% more than a heroic dose. This isn't just overclocking. This is, hooking the motherboard up to a lightning rod during a storm.
It is, and that's why the author's framing is so important. This isn't recreational. This was a deliberate experiment to see if he could forcibly bypass what the lexicon calls the ego firewall.
Let's talk about that firewall. We've mentioned it before, but in this specific high-stakes context, what is it?
Well, think about your own experience right now. You're hearing my voice, you're seeing the room around you, you feel the chair you're sitting on. It all feels solid and coherent.
Right, it feels real.
That feeling of realness is a service provided by the ego firewall. It takes the infinite chaos of raw sensory data and filters it down into a manageable, stable user interface. It stops you from seeing every photon, every quantum probability, so you can actually function.
So you can pick up your coffee cup without having an existential crisis about the nature of the cup.
Exactly. The firewall says, this is a cup. Don't worry about the trillions of atoms vibrating in a specific pattern. Just drink your coffee. It's a survival mechanism.
But the author wanted to see what was on the other side of that filter.
He wanted to get root access. And this dose was the brute force method to do it. Just hammer the server with requests until the security protocols fail and the door swings open.
Which is incredibly dangerous. And that brings us to the safety measures. There's another person mentioned in the log, Jonathan.
Right, the sitter.
And again, the TPS terminology here is so specific. In a normal trip, the sitter is just your sober friend making sure you don't do anything stupid. But in this analysis, Jonathan is designated as the server coordinate.
I love that term, a server coordinate. It's so precise because when you're in that state, when the firewall is down, your own internal GPS is gone. Your sense of self, of time, of your own body, it all dissolves.
Or Jeff.
Completely. You're untethered in the data stream. Jonathan, sitting there calmly in the room, acts as a fixed point, a stable server in a sea of crashing networks. His presence is the anchor that says, this simulation, the one where people sit in rooms, is still running.
He's the external hard drive holding the backup of reality.
The perfect way to put it. So that's the setup. A massive system crashing dose, a safe, controlled environment, and a human anchor to the stable simulation.
But let's get to the mission, the why. Why do this? Why take this incredibly precise technical system, the TPS protocol, and apply it to something so famously chaotic and, well, ineffable as a mushroom trip?
That's the whole experiment. The author had this realization that the lexicon wasn't just a new way to talk about meditation. He believed it was a universal interface for contemplative technology.
Universal being the key word.
Exactly. If it's truly universal, it has to work on the edge cases. It has to be able to map not just the gentle hills of mindfulness, but the absolute terrifying vertical cliffs of a psychedelic crisis.
So it's a validation run. Can this system, designed to analyze the mind, actually translate the ravings of a mind that's been completely shattered?
Can you turn a bad trip into a system diagnostic report? That's the question. Most people come back from an experience like this and they use very poetic but vague language. I saw God. I became one with everything.
Which sounds profound, but what can you do with that information?
Nothing, really. It's not actionable. It's like calling IT support and saying your computer feels sad. They can't work with that. They need error codes. They need to know if it's a memory leak, a driver conflict, a kernel panic.
So TPS is an attempt to create a Rosetta Stone, to translate the mystical glitches of a trip into the executable language of system architecture.
That's the goal. Treat the mind as an operating system, the drug as a root access tool, and the trip report as the crash log we can now analyze. So let's get into that log.
Okay, let's do it. Phase 1 in the document is called the render failure, or more poetically, viewing the flux.
And the journal entry here is pretty classic for the onset of a big trip. The author writes, the dharma of the sleeping Buddha, dreaming the universe into being, knowing that all there is a big fucking joke. It's like being in an Alex Grey painting.
Okay, that last part, like being in an Alex Grey painting, is almost a psychedelic cliche at this point.
It is, but for a reason. For listeners who aren't familiar, Alex Grey's art is famous for these anatomical, translucent figures overlaid with grids, energy fields, and geometric patterns. Very intricate.
Yeah, you see the chakras, the meridians, the whole energetic system.
And people on psychedelics often report seeing the world exactly like that. But the TPS diagnosis for this experience is not seeing cosmic art. The diagnosis is mind-only architecture, high-density voxels.
High-density voxels. Okay, we've talked about voxel before. A voxel is like a 3D pixel, a data point in space.
Exactly. Think about a character in a high-end video game. They look real, right? But if you zoom in close enough, or if the game glitches, you see the underlying structure. You see the polygons, the wireframe mesh that makes up the character model.
So the author is saying the textures of reality were peeling away, and he was seeing the wireframe underneath.
The render engine of his perception stopped smoothing everything out. He's no longer seeing a solid world. He's seeing the constituent data packets. He's witnessing what the lexicon calls the staging environment.
The staging environment. In programming, that's where you test code before you push it to the live server, right?
Precisely. In Buddhist cosmology, this would be the Sambhogakaya, the realm of pure form and energy before it hardens or compiles into the physical world we interact with, the Nirmanakaya. He's seeing the data refreshing at, well, trillions of frames per second. The flux.
He's seeing the code before it becomes a web page.
You got it. He's looking at the source. But I want to go back to another part of that quote. Knowing that all there is a big fucking joke.
Yeah, that's a heavy statement. It sounds kind of nihilistic, doesn't it? Like life is a meaningless joke.
It can sound that way if you hear the word joke as something cruel or mocking. But in the TPS framework, this realization is the discovery of the null pointer.
The null pointer. Okay, explain that one. Assume
Yeah.
I don't know anything about coding.
All right. Imagine you have a shortcut on your computer's desktop, an icon for a file called My Identity. You double-click it, expecting it to open a document that defines who you are.
Okay.
The icon is a pointer. It points to a specific location on your hard drive where that file is supposed to be. Now, a null pointer is when you click that icon, and the computer follows the path and finds nothing. The address is empty. The destination is NULL.
It's a dead link.
It's a shortcut to nowhere. Now, apply that to your sense of self. We all operate with this deep-seated assumption that inside our head, there's a user, a little person at the controls, the I, who is thinking and feeling.
The ghost in the machine.
Right. And we think that I is a real solid thing. But when the author gets root access and looks behind the curtain, he follows the path for the user and finds a null pointer. There's no one home.
There's no user.
The TPS analysis is that the self is not a user, but a rootkit.
A rootkit? That sounds malicious. Like a virus.
Yep, in a way. A rootkit is a piece of software that burrows deep into the operating system and gives itself administrator privileges, often while hiding its own existence. It's a background process that runs constantly saying, I'm in charge here, I'm real.
And when the author saw that the I was just this process, this script running, and not a real entity.
That's the joke. the cosmic giggle. It's the immense relief of realizing you've spent your entire life taking a software bug incredibly seriously. You've been carrying this immense weight of being me, and suddenly you see that me is just a ghost in the code. It's hilarious.
So it's not a mean joke. It's the laughter of freedom.
It's the laughter of putting down a heavy bag you didn't even know you were carrying.
Okay, so that's phase one. It's this profound and almost ecstatic realization, seeing the code, getting the joke. But the tone of the report shifts dramatically after this. We enter phase two, infinite recursion, subtitled The Boot Loop.
Yeah, this is where the fun stops. The system starts to seriously destabilize.
The journal quote here is, "Chilling. It felt like forever. Reality, space-time, looping like a never-ending Inception movie. False awakenings. Infinite loop."
This experience of a time loop is a hallmark of very high-dose psychedelic states. But again, TPS doesn't just call it trippy, it diagnoses it as the boot loop refresh rate visibility.
So what's happening mechanically here? Why does our sense of time break?
Well, who is it that experiences time in a straight line? Who tells the story of yesterday, today, and tomorrow?
The self, the ego.
Exactly. The self kit has one primary function to create a narrative. It takes the chaotic fire hose of data from the present moment and strings it together into a coherent story. It's a video editor, piecing together individual frames to create the illusion of a smooth, linear movie.
But in phase one, the author just realized that video editor is a ghost. He fired him.
He bypassed the rootkit, and now there's no one there to edit the footage. So what you get is a pileup of raw frames. The system defaults to its base state, which is infinite recursion.
Meaning it just processes the same moment over and over and over again.
Yes. It's like holding down the F5 key on your web browser. Refresh, refresh, refresh. But because the editor who keeps the history log is gone, each refresh feels like the first and only time it has ever happened. It feels eternal.
Wow. That sounds like a specific kind of hell. The report also mentions false awakenings. Is that part of the same loop?
It is. The system is trying to reboot. The TPS analysis for this is a corrupted save point.
Oof. Yeah, anyone who plays video games knows that feeling in the pit of your stomach. You go to load your game and the file is unreadable.
It's that, but for your soul. Every moment the system is crashing. That's a micro-death. And then it tries to reboot, to be reborn. It tries to load the user profile, the author.
But the profile is corrupted by this 7.377 grams of brute force chemicals.
Exactly. So the system fails to load, it crashes, and the process begins again. For the consciousness experiencing it, it's a loop of thinking, okay, I'm back, I'm awake now, only to realize a second later that you're still in the loop. It's a nightmare.
And this is what people mean by time dilation on a trip. It's not that time slows down, it's that the processing of time has failed.
It's a system error. The timeline feature has crashed, leaving you stranded in a single, endlessly repeating moment.
And I can only imagine the kind of panic that would induce. Which I think leads us right into the darkest part of this entire document. Phase 3, system instability, also called the Dark Night.
Yes. If Phase 2 is a system glitch, Phase 3 is a full-blown meltdown into what feels like a digital hellscape. The tone becomes truly visceral.
It really does. I'm quoting the log again. Moving through hyperspace, passing through the bonga, primordial feeling of disgust, the source of all there is, spitting, vomiting, infinite horror.
Let's just sit with that for a second. The source of all there is spitting, vomiting. This is a long way from the beautiful Alex Gray geometry of Phase 1.
A very long way. The TPS error code logged for this phase is void leak detected, and it uses a specific term from the lexicon, bonga.
Bonga. It's a term from classical Buddhist meditation maps from the Pali language. It means, quite literally, dissolution or disgust.
The dissolution of what?
The dissolution of reality itself. The TPS analysis calls this the uncanny valley of the hack.
The uncanny valley, like with creepy, almost human robots.
Exactly that feeling of revulsion, but applied to the entire cosmos. In this phase, the author has successfully deleted the avatar, the sense of self, form, the body, but he's not yet stabilized in the source code, in the peace of pure emptiness. He's trapped in the horrifying transition state between the two.
The space between the illusion and the truth.
And that space is filled with disgust. Think about it this way. Your skin, your face, it's a beautiful, smooth user interface. But what happens if I peel it back? You see muscle, sinew, blood. It's a wet biological machine.
It's gross.
It's gross because you're seeing the raw machinery without the pleasing interface. The author is now seeing the raw machinery of the universe. The input ports of the senses are just spitting out raw data, vomiting information into existence without any of the glamour or poetry we usually layer on top.
So the vomiting source isn't some evil Lovecraftian god. It's just the universe
Yeah.
making sausage. And he's seeing how it's made.
He's seeing how the sausage is made, and it's a churn of endless, indifferent creation and destruction. And that indifference is the core of what the log calls the terror node.
The infinite horror. Why is the source so horrific? In most spiritual traditions, the ultimate goal is to merge with the source, which is described as love or bliss.
Love and bliss is the user-friendly description we tell ourselves. It's the marketing copy. But the kernel, the actual source code of the operating system, it's pure, cold, indifferent logic. It has no preference. It will create a beautiful nebula and a cancer cell with the exact same impartial efficiency.
It just runs the code.
It just executes commands. And when the ego, which is a machine built entirely on preference, on I want this, I don't want that, comes face to face with that absolute cosmic indifference, it experiences it as pure terror.
It's like an ant on the railroad tracks. The train isn't evil, it's just coming. But for the ant, it's the apocalypse.
A perfect analogy. And there's one final crushing layer to this horror mentioned in the log. He says, infinite horror, loneliness. Why loneliness?
That part really stood out to me. Where does that come from?
It's a direct, logical consequence of the experience. If you trace everything back to the single source of all there is, how many things are there at that level?
Just one.
Just one. The one processor. So if you are that source, you are by definition completely and utterly alone. There is no other. There are no friends, no enemies, no God to pray to. You are it.
It's solipsism at the system level.
And it is the ultimate existential dread. To wake up and realize that everyone and everything you've ever known is just a projection within your own consciousness, that's not a blissful union. That is infinite horror.
Okay, so I can absolutely see why he would be panicking at this point.
Yeah.
You're trapped forever in a time loop, witnessing the gory mechanics of a universe that doesn't care about you, and you just realized you're the only thing that has ever existed. That is a bad trip.
That is the definition of a digital hell. So the question becomes, how do you escape? How do you perform a system restore from that level of crash?
Which brings us to phase 4. System restore, alignment, and the return.
The turning point, the way out.
And the journal entry becomes very personal here. What if I don't get back to my family? Love brought me back to the stability of this reality. Back in the room where Jonathan was patiently waiting.
And the TPS diagnosis for this is White Hat Protocol Avatar Respawn. This is where Jonathan's role as the server coordinate becomes critical.
He's the beacon in the storm.
In that swirling void of solipsistic terror, Jonathan's physical presence was a stable data point, an undeniable signal of otherness. The thought process is, that entity is there, it is not me, therefore the solipsism is wrong, therefore I am not alone.
The existence of the other breaks the spell of the one. But the log says the mechanism, the force that pulled him back, was love. How does TPS, this cold technical system, process an emotion like love?
It defines love with a very specific technical function. Core 1, open ports.
Open port.
Think about the terror node. What is the instinctive reaction to absolute terror? You contract, you curl into a ball, you shut everything down. You close all your ports to incoming data to protect the core system.
Yeah, isolate yourself.
Right. Love, in the TPS model, is the opposite command. It's the active protocol of opening your ports, of choosing connection, even in the face of fear and instability. When the author thought of his family, his wife, his son, he executed that command. He opened a port.
And that connection created a signal.
A stable, coherent signal that he could navigate by. In the chaos of the void, that thought, that feeling was the only thing with enough integrity to act as a homing beacon, guiding him back to his specific server coordinate, his life.
So you follow the love back to your avatar, which leads to this idea in the report about a voluntary, contracted reality. He chose to come back.
He chose the latency. This is such a critical and paradoxical insight in the entire TPS system.
Paradoxical, because the whole goal is usually zero lag, right? Ultimate efficiency, no separation.
The ultimate goal of the architecture is zero lag, yes. But here's what the author realized in that moment. To be at zero lag is to be the source. And to be the source is to be infinitely alone.
So you willingly accept the lag. You accept the contracted reality of being a separate human being.
You accept the inefficiency. You accept the delay between my thought and my words reaching you. You accept the separation between me and you because it's within that very separation, that latency, that relationship becomes possible.
You need two separate points to form a connection.
You do. And this is the essence of the White Hat Protocol. A black hat hacker crashes the system for destruction or for laughs. A white hat hacker finds the system's deepest vulnerability, understands it, and then chooses to patch it to keep it running for everyone else.
He chooses to return to the simulation, to the illusion, to prevent the local network, his family, from suffering a catastrophic failure.
He accepts the burden of being human, the dukkha, the suffering, the lag, because the alternative, the truth of the void, means abandoning those connections.
And that reframes the whole idea of coming down. It's not a failure or a loss of the cosmic view. It's a conscious, compassionate choice, an avatar respawn.
You pick the controller back up, not because you're fooled by the game anymore, but because you love the other players.
So the system reboots. He's back. But now comes the analysis after the fact, the post-mortem, which is Section 6. And the system assigns him a user class. Glitcher, not Grandmaster.
And this is a very important distinction in the TPS hierarchy.
Why? He's got the source code. He knows the secret now. What's the difference?
The method of entry. The glitcher uses brute force, the chemical overclock. They kick the door in, get a chaotic glimpse of the server room, and then get thrown out when the chemical wears off. The security systems, the ego firewall, they reboot and go back online.
So it's temporary access.
It's unauthorized, temporary admin access. A grandmaster, on the other hand, someone who has achieved a stable state of insight, like stream entry, through years of meditation, has done it differently. They haven't smashed the door down. They've spent years finding the master key.
They have a permanent patch installed.
Their access is stable. It's their default state. They can see the voxels and the user interface simultaneously without the system crashing into the Terra node. The glitcher gets a terrifying tour. The grandmaster has a key to the building.
Got it. So the author was basically a tourist in the void. But the report says that even as a glitcher, he was able to make the 3 verifications. He brought back actionable intel.
Yes, the stress test was successful in that regard. It confirmed 3 core principles of the TPS architecture.
Okay, let's go through them. Verification number 1.
Saw the voxel. He confirmed through direct subjective experience that what we call solid matter is actually a rendering of high-density voxels. For him, the simulation theory is no longer a theory. He's seen the wireframe.
Verification 2.
Felt the lag. He experienced the terror node. He verified that dropping the ego firewall without a stable patch results in system instability and infinite loneliness. He proved that the self, for all its problems, serves a vital protective function.
It's a necessary bug, for now. And the 3rd, verification.
Chose the patch. This is the big one. He validated that the only stable configuration for a conscious system, when faced with the void, is compassion and love. It was the only protocol that worked. It wasn't intellect, it wasn't power, it wasn't willpower that brought him back, it was connection.
So the test was a success. The protocol mapped the chaos. But the final section is maybe the most important for the listener. Section 7, integration protocol. So you've survived the digital apocalypse. What do you do on Tuesday morning?
Right, and this is where TPS is so powerful. It doesn't just leave you with a cool story. It gives you a series of executable commands for what to do next.
Step 1 is listed as stabilize the avatar.
And the instruction for that is heavy haptic feedback.
Haptic feedback like the buzz on your smartphone.
Exactly, but for your entire being. The protocol recommends physical touch, lifting heavy weights, eating grounding foods, walking barefoot on the earth.
Why is that so important?
Because the operating system is still shaky. It's just been convinced it's the only thing in existence and that its body isn't real. You have to flood the system with powerful sensory data to re-anchor it, to convince the mind that the contracted reality is real and safe again.
You have to literally ground the system's electricity.
If you don't, you can get stuck in states of depersonalization or derealization, feeling like a ghost. You have to actively work to re-atzify your avatar's presence in the simulation.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
Step 2, practice zero lag.
And the key instruction here is stop using brute force. You've seen behind the curtain. You don't need to take another 7 grams to prove it to yourself again.
Don't chase the dragon.
Don't become a glitch junkie. The instruction is to now use the logger, which is the TPS term for Vipassana meditation in daily life.
So you take the macro insight from the trip and apply it to the micro moments of your day.
Exactly. When you feel a moment of stress or anger, that's latency. You note it, you see it as a resource hog program running in the background, and you gently execute the command to release it. You debug the code of daily life instead of trying to blow up the whole computer again.
And then there's step 3, which feels like the new prime directive, the Bodhisattva script.
This is the integration of the White Hat Protocol into a life philosophy.
The core fear from the trip, that question, what if I don't get back to my family? That becomes a feature, not a bug.
Yes, because once you have truly felt that terror, you never again take the stable simulation for granted. On a cellular level, how fragile it all is.
And that knowledge changes your mission.
Completely. The mission is no longer about escaping the matrix or achieving personal enlightenment to get away from it all. The mission becomes about optimizing the local network. You work to stabilize the simulation for the people you love.
You cherish the ordinary things, making breakfast for your kid, talking with your partner, precisely because you know they're just beautiful temporary renderings.
You hold them with this incredible care, like a precious hologram. You know it's not solid, and that's exactly why it's so valuable. That's the Bodhisattva script. Knowing the game is a game, but playing it with absolute love and commitment for the other players.
So in the end, the TPS protocol worked. It took this wild, terrifying, chaotic experience and translated it into a coherent diagnostic report with actionable next steps.
It demonstrated that what we call a bad trip is just system instability, and what we call love is a fundamental connectivity protocol. It takes the spooky mysticism out of it and replaces it with a workable, debuggable map.
It's an incredible document. I feel like we could talk about it for hours more. It really it recalibrates your own sense of reality just by analyzing it.
It's a contact high from a PDF file.
It really is.
Yeah.
But as we start to wrap up, I want to leave everyone with that final provocative thought from the outline, because it's the question that really sticks with you.
The paradox of the user and the admin.
Yeah. So the author has this profound realization. The self, this thing I call me, is a rootkit. It's a piece of buggy code that causes all this suffering and crashes the system.
But that same buggy piece of code is the part of the system that loves its family. It's the I that chose to come back from the void.
So the ultimate question becomes, can you run the simulation knowing it's a simulation? Can you look at the icon for the folder named My Son on your desktop and love that icon with all your heart, even though, with absolute certainty, it's just zeros and ones underneath?
Can you hug your child and feel the warmth and the reality of them while simultaneously knowing they're a temporary collection of high-density voxels? And maybe can you love them even more fiercely because of that knowledge?
Can you cherish the hologram precisely because you know the null pointer is waiting just beneath the surface for all of us?
Yeah.
That, I think, is the ongoing practice.
Yeah, it's the integration.
Log into the real, keep your ports open.
Yeah.
See you in the flux.
See you in the flux.